The digital clock on the nightstand read 2:11 a.m. when Adam Turner's eyes snapped open in the darkness. For a moment, he lay still, listening to the quiet hum of the ceiling fan above their bed, trying to figure out what had pulled him from sleep. Then he heard again, a thin, sharp cry cutting through the baby monitor on Hannah's nightstand. June! Adam pushed himself up on one elbow, blinking away the fog of interrupted sleep. His wife Hannah lay beside him, her blonde hair spread across the pillow, her breathing deep and even. She'd been up with June until midnight, walking circles around the nursery while their daughter fought off another bout of colic. Adam had told her he'd take the next shift, but exhaustion had claimed them both. The cry came again, more insistent this time. Adam swung his legs out of bed, his bare feet finding the cool hardwood floor. He grabbed his t-shirt from a chair by the door and pulled it on as he padded down the short hallway of their rental house. The nursery door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of yellow light spilling out into the darkened corridor. That stopped him. They always turned the lights off when they put June down. Adam pushed the door open wider and stepped inside, then froze in the doorway, his hand still on the doorknob. His mother-in-law, Marlene, stood over the crib in her bathrobe and slippers, leaning down with something in her hands. A bottle and a cloth. The sharp, acrid smell of bleach hit Adam's nostrils like a slap, making his eyes water. June's face was red and blotchy, her small features twisted in pain as she wailed. Marlene. Adam's voice came out strange and tight. What are you doing? She turned to face him, and the smile on her face made his stomach drop. It was the same satisfied expression she wore when she finished reorganizing Hannah's kitchen cabinets or corrected Adam's grammar at Sunday dinner. The look of someone who believed they'd done something helpful. I took care of that ugly birthmark for you, Marlene said, gesturing toward June with the bleach bottle still in her hand. The one on her cheek. You should see how much lighter it is already. Adam's brain struggled to process what he was hearing. The birthmark. The small, port wine-colored mark on June's left cheek, no bigger than a dime. Hannah had the same one in old baby pictures. It ran in her family. The pediatrician had said it might fade over time, or it might not. Either way, it was harmless. You! Adam crossed the room in 3 long strides and gently lifted June from her crib. His daughter's skin felt hot against his palms, and when he angled her face toward the light, he saw the angry red patch where the birthmark had been. The skin looked raw, almost blistered. You put bleach on her face. Just a little, Marlene said, as if she were discussing laundry detergent. I diluted it, of course. I'm not stupid, Adam. But that mark was getting darker, and I knew Hannah was worried about it, even if she wouldn't say so. I thought I'd save you both the trouble of dealing with it later. Adam stared at her, his arms tightening protectively around June. His daughter's cries had subsided into hiccuping whimpers against his shoulder, but he could feel the trembling in her small body. Hannah never said she was worried about it. Adam managed, his voice low and careful. He was trying very hard not to shout, not to scare June any more than she already was. Because she wasn't. That birthmark came from her side of the family, Marlene. From you. He watched the color drain from his mother-in-law's face. Her mouth opened, then closed. The satisfied smile disappeared. That's not, she started. Hannah has the same one in every baby picture, Adam continued, moving toward the door with June still pressed against his chest. Your husband had one too. She told me that. Marlene's expression shifted, hardening into something defensive and cold. Well, I was helping. You should be grateful someone around here is willing to take action instead of just accepting every little imperfection. Get out, Adam said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my daughter's room. He didn't wait to see if she'd comply. He carried June down the hall to the bathroom, shouldering the door open and fumbling for the light switch. The fluorescent bulb flickered to life, harsh and clinical. Adam positioned June carefully over the sink and turned on the cold water tap, letting it run over his fingers until the temperature felt right. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he murmured, cupping water in his palm and letting it drip gently over June's injured cheek. I'm so sorry. June flinched at the first touch of water, her little face scrunching up, but then seemed to settle as the coolness soothed the burn. Adam kept up the gentle rinse, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Behind him, he heard footsteps in the hallway, 2 sets of them now. Adam, Hannah's voice, still thick with sleep. What's going on? Is June okay? He didn't turn around. Couldn't. If he looked at Hannah right now, if he saw her standing there next to her mother, he wasn't sure what words would come out of his mouth. Your mother, Adam said, each syllable deliberate and measured, put bleach on our daughter's face. The silence that followed was absolute. Adam continued rinsing June's cheek, counting his breaths. 1, 2, 3. She what? Hannah's voice had changed, climbing higher. It was an accident. Marlene interjected quickly. I was trying to help. The birthmark was getting so dark, and I thought. You thought bleach would help? Adam turned now, water dripping from his hands. He looked past Hannah to where Marlene stood in the bathroom doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. What part of putting bleach on a 6-week-old baby's skin seemed helpful to you? I diluted it, Marlene repeated, as if this made everything reasonable. And I was very careful. It's not like I poured it directly on her. Mom, Hannah stepped between them, her eyes moving from her mother to Adam to June's red, irritated face. Tell me you didn't really. She did, Adam said flatly. He grabbed a clean towel from the rack and carefully patted June's cheek dry, avoiding the worst of the damaged skin. I found her standing over the crib with a bottle of bleach and a rag. June's face was already burning. Hannah's hand went to her mouth. In the harsh bathroom light, Adam could see the conflict written across her features. Shock, horror, but also something else. Something that looked uncomfortably like the need to smooth things over, to find a way to make this less awful than it was. I didn't mean for her to cry, Marlene said, her tone shifting towards something almost petulant. I was being gentle. She just has sensitive skin, like Hannah did. Adam felt something cold and sharp settle into his chest. He looked at his wife. Hannah, we need to take her to the emergency room. The ER? Marlene scoffed. Don't you think that's a bit dramatic? It's just a little irritation. Put some aloe on it, and she'll be fine by morning. Her skin is blistered, Adam said, not taking his eyes off Hannah. She needs a doctor to look at this. Now, Hannah nodded slowly, but her eyes kept darting back to her mother. Okay, yes. I'll get dressed. She turned toward the bedroom, and Marlene followed her, already talking in that rapid, explanatory way she had when she needed to reframe a situation. Anna, honey, you know I would never hurt June. I love her. I was just trying to save you from years of people staring at that mark, asking questions. You remember how the kids at school used to tease you about yours before it faded? Adam stood alone in the bathroom, holding his daughter, listening to Marlene's voice echoed down the hallway. June had quieted now, exhausted from crying, her small body heavy and warm against his chest. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid and fragile, through the thin cotton of her onesie. You always overreact to everything, Marlene was saying. Remember when you wanted to call the police because I let her cry for 5 minutes in the car? Babies cry, Adam. It's what they do. You can't protect her from every little thing. Something in Adam's chest tightened and then snapped. He walked out of the bathroom, down the hall, and found them in the bedroom. Hannah was pulling on jeans, her movements jerky and uncertain. Marlene sat on the edge of the bed, still in her bathrobe, watching her daughter with that particular expression of wounded righteousness she perfected over the years. Get out, Adam said. Marlene looked up at him. What? Get out of my house. And don't come back. Adam, you can't. I just told you what I can do. His voice was quiet but absolutely steady. You hurt my daughter. You burned her skin with bleach because you thought a birthmark was ugly. And now you're sitting here trying to convince us it was no big deal. He shifted June in his arms, felt her small hand close around his thumb. You don't come near her again. Ever. Hannah. Marlene stood up, appealing to her daughter. Are you going to let him talk to me like this? Hannah stood frozen by the dresser, one hand still on the drawer pull. Adam watched his wife's face, saw the war being waged behind her eyes. He'd seen that look before, the same torn expression she wore whenever he and Marlene disagreed about anything, from how to season the Thanksgiving turkey to whether they should co-sign on a loan for her brother. Hannah hated conflict. She'd do almost anything to avoid it, to smooth it over, to find some middle ground where everyone could pretend to be happy. But there was no middle ground here. There couldn't be. Mom, Hannah said softly, maybe you should go home. Just for tonight. Let us take June to get checked out, and we can talk about this tomorrow when everyone's calmer. Marlene's face flushed red. So, he gets to throw me out of your house now? He gets to tell you what to do. It's our house, Hannah said, but her voice wavered. And June is hurt, Mom. We need to take her to the hospital. It's not that serious. Marlene, Adam cut her off. If you're still here in 2 minutes, I'm calling the police and telling them you assaulted my daughter. Then we can let them decide if it's serious. The words hung in the air, sharp and final. Marlene's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then she grabbed her purse from the chair by the window and pushed past Adam, her shoulder bumping his hard enough to make him take a step back. You're going to regret this, she said, her voice shaking with fury. Both of you. Her footsteps echoed down the hall. The front door opened and slammed shut hard enough to rattle the windows. Through the bedroom window, Adam watched his mother-in-law's car pull out of the driveway too fast, gravel spraying behind her tires. Hannah stood very still, staring at the floor. We should go, Adam said quietly. She nodded without looking at him and grabbed her purse. The emergency room at Hollow Creek General was nearly empty at 3 in the morning. A man with a bandaged hand dozed in one of the plastic chairs. A woman sat in the corner, pressing an ice pack to her ankle. The overhead fluorescents buzzed and flickered, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Adam held June while Hannah checked them in at the desk. The woman behind the counter, middle-aged with kind eyes and reading glasses on a chain, glanced down at June's face and frowned. How did this happen? She asked, typing on her computer. My mother used bleach, Hannah said quietly. She thought. She was trying to lighten a birthmark. The woman's fingers paused on the keyboard. Her eyes moved from Hannah to Adam, then back to the angry red mark on June's cheek. I see. Someone will be with you shortly. They sat in the waiting area, June fussing softly in Adam's lap. Hannah had her arms wrapped around herself, staring at a poster on the wall about flu shots. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable, punctuated only by June's occasional whimpers and the distant sound of a television from somewhere deeper in the hospital. Adam studied his wife's profile in the harsh light. He'd met Hannah 6 years ago at a friend's wedding, been struck immediately by her laugh and the way she moved on the dance floor like she didn't care who was watching. She'd been working as a teacher then, just starting out, full of plans and enthusiasm. They'd married after 2 years, bought this house after 3. When Hannah got pregnant, Adam had thought his life was finally clicking into place, all the pieces fitting together the way they were supposed to. But Marlene had been there from the beginning, a constant presence in their marriage. Sunday dinners, holiday planning, unannounced visits. She had opinions about everything, how they should budget their money, what colors to paint the nursery, whether Hannah should go back to work after the baby came. Adam had tried to be patient, tried to understand that Hannah was close with her mother, that losing her father 10 years ago had made that bond even stronger. He'd bitten his tongue through countless dinners where Marlene criticized his job in construction, his lack of a college degree, his family's working-class background. But this was different. June Turner, a nurse, appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. She was young, probably fresh out of school, with her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. They followed her back through a maze of curtained exam areas. The nurse weighed June, took her temperature, made notes on her clipboard. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but Adam saw the way her gaze lingered on June's injured cheek, the slight tightening around her eyes. Dr. Patterson will be in shortly, she said, and slipped out through the curtain. Adam sat in the single chair, while Hannah stood at the foot of the exam table, her arms still wrapped around herself. June had fallen into an exhausted sleep against his shoulder, her breathing finally even and calm. She didn't mean it, Hannah said suddenly. Adam looked up at her. What? My mom. She didn't mean to hurt June. She was trying to help in her own way. She doesn't always think things through. The cold thing in Adam's chest spread wider, colder. Hannah, She put bleach on our baby's face. I know. Hannah's voice was barely above a whisper. I know it was wrong, but she loves June. She loves us. She wouldn't deliberately hurt her. The intent doesn't matter, Adam said carefully. The result is what matters. Our daughter has a chemical burn because your mother decided a birthmark was ugly and needed to be removed. Don't say it like that, like she's some kind of monster. Then how should I say it? Hannah turned away from him, pressing her palms against her eyes. Her shoulders shook once, twice, and Adam realized she was crying silently. Part of him wanted to go to her, to comfort her the way he always had when things got hard. But another part of him, a newer, harder part that had solidified the moment he'd walked into that nursery, kept him seated, kept him still. The curtain rustled and a doctor stepped in, older man with silver hair and a tired but friendly face. Evening, folks. Or morning, I suppose. I'm Dr. Patterson. He washed his hands at the small sink, then approached the exam table. Let's see what we've got here. Adam stood and carefully transferred June to the examination table. She stirred but didn't wake. Dr. Patterson put on gloves and gently examined June's face, his expression growing more serious as he worked. He pulled out a light, checked her eyes, palpated the area around the burn with delicate fingers. How long ago did the exposure occur? He asked. About an hour, Adam said. I rinsed it with cool water right away. Good. That helped. Dr. Patterson straightened up, pulling off his gloves. It's a superficial chemical burn. First degree, possibly some second degree involvement in the center. She'll heal, but there's likely to be some scarring. Hannah made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. The birthmark? Adam asked. The bleach destroyed the pigmented tissue in that area? Yes. But it also damaged the surrounding skin. I'll prescribe a burn cream, and we'll need to follow up in a week to monitor healing. The doctor's gaze moved between them, his expression careful. Can you tell me exactly how this happened? Adam explained, keeping his voice level and factual. Dr. Patterson listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on his tablet. And the person who applied the bleach, was it one of you? My mother, Hannah said quickly. She was visiting. She didn't mean. She's no longer in the home. Adam cut in firmly. She won't have access to our daughter again. Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. I'm required to file a report with social services in cases of chemical exposure to minors. They'll likely follow up with a home visit to ensure the child's safety. We understand, Adam said. We're good parents, Hannah added, her voice breaking. This wasn't. We would never. I'm not suggesting you would, Mrs. Turner. But protocol is protocol. The doctor's voice was kind but firm. The burn cream should help with the pain and promote healing. Keep the area clean and dry. No bath for a few days, just sponge baths. And if you notice any signs of infection, increased redness, swelling, discharge, bring her back immediately. He handed Adam a prescription and a care instruction sheet, then left them alone with their daughter. Dawn was breaking over Hollow Creek by the time they got home, the sky shifting from deep purple to pale gray. Adam carried June's car, seat up the front walk, while Hannah unlocked the door. Their house looked the same as it had when they'd left hours before. The living room still scattered with June's toys, Hannah's coffee mug still sitting on the kitchen counter from yesterday morning. But something had fundamentally changed. Adam could feel it, could sense it in the way Hannah moved through the rooms without quite looking at him. He settled June in her crib, watching her sleep for a long moment. In the gentle light coming through the nursery window, the bandage on her cheek looked stark and white against her skin. Dr. Patterson had said she'd heal. He'd said the scar would probably be faint. Probably. Adam's hands curled into fists at his sides. When he turned around, Hannah was standing in the doorway, watching him. I'm going to call her, Hannah said softly, to let her know June's okay. No, Adam, she's probably worried. I don't care. He moved past his wife, out into the hallway. She doesn't get updates. She doesn't get to know anything about June. Hannah followed him into their bedroom. She's my mother, and June is my daughter. Adam sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. Your mother hurt her, Hannah. Deliberately or not, she hurt her. And she's not sorry. Did you hear her tonight? She thought she was doing us a favor. She was wrong, Hannah said, her voice rising. I know she was wrong, but she's still my mother. I can't just cut her out of my life. I'm not asking you to. Adam looked up at his wife, saw the tears streaming down her face, and felt his resolve waver for just a moment. Then he thought of June's face, red and raw and blistered, and the steel came back. I'm asking you to choose our daughter's safety over your mother's feelings. That's it. That's all. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Hannah shook her head, backing toward the door. You don't understand. You never understood. My family, we stick together. We work things out. We don't just throw people away because they make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Adam said quietly. This was a choice. Your mother chose to put bleach on June's face. And when I confronted her about it, she chose to defend herself instead of apologizing. Those were choices, Hannah. And now I'm making mine. He lay back on the bed, closing his eyes. He heard Hannah standing there for a long moment, heard her breath hitching with suppressed sobs. Then her footsteps retreated down the hall. A door closed. The house fell silent. Adam didn't sleep. He lay there as the sun climbed higher, as the room grew warm with morning light, as June began to stir and fuss in the nursery. He listened to Hannah moving through the house, the sound of running water, cabinets opening and closing, her phone ringing and finally being answered in a hushed voice he couldn't quite make out. When he finally got up and went to check on June, he found that her bandage had been changed and she'd been given a bottle. Hannah was sitting in the rocking chair by the window, still in yesterday's clothes, staring out at their small backyard with red-rimmed eyes. I told her, Hannah said without looking at him. I told Mom she can't come over for a while, that we need time. Adam picked up June, felt her small weight settle against him. For a while, I didn't know what else to say. Hannah's voice was flat, defeated. She was crying. She kept saying she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt anyone. Did she say sorry to June? Hannah didn't answer. Adam left the room, carrying his daughter with him. He made coffee one-handed, tested the temperature of the burn cream the way Dr. Patterson had shown him, carefully applied it to June's injured cheek while she squirmed and whimpered. He changed her diaper, put her in a fresh onesie with tiny ducks on it, carried her around the living room while she fussed against his shoulder. Hannah stayed in the nursery. Adam could hear her moving around in there, opening and closing drawers, the soft creak of the rocking chair. He wondered if she was texting her mother, making plans, trying to figure out how to fix this in a way that wouldn't require actually taking a side. He wondered when he'd stop being able to trust his own wife. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, silent tension. Hannah went back to work. She'd only taken 6 weeks of maternity leave, needed to save the rest for later, and Adam adjusted his construction schedule so he could stay home with June during the days. They spoke only when necessary. Their conversations reduced to logistics and schedules. Who would pick up groceries? When June's next doctor's appointment was? Whether they needed more diapers. Adam noticed things. Small things at first. Hannah's phone tucked under her pillow when she slept. The way she stepped outside to take calls, her voice low and rushed. The presents that appeared on the front porch, baby clothes, toys, a mobile for June's crib. Always with cards in Marlene's handwriting. For my precious granddaughter. Love, Grandma. Adam threw the cards away. He boxed up the presents and left them in the garage. June's cheek healed slowly. The redness faded to pink, then to a pale discoloration that might, Dr. Patterson said optimistically, continue to fade over time. Or it might not. Only time would tell. The birthmark was gone, lightened to almost nothing. In its place was a faint, irregular patch of skin that looked too smooth, too new, like a ghost of what had been there before. On the 15th day, Adam came home from a quick run to the hardware store and found Marlene's car in the driveway. He sat in his truck for a long moment, staring at that car. It was a silver sedan, meticulously clean, with a bumper sticker that read "Proud Grandma" in swirling letters. He'd seen it parked in this same spot dozens of times over the years. Had walked past it at Sunday dinners, at birthday parties, at Christmas. Had never thought much about it one way or another. Now the sight of it made something dark and cold unfurl in his stomach. Adam got out of the truck and walked up to the house. He could hear voices inside before he even opened the door. Hannah's laugh, light and genuine in a way it hadn't been for weeks. Marlene's voice responding, warm and teasing. And underneath it, June making those happy gurgling sounds she made when someone was paying attention to her. He pushed the door open and stepped into the living room. Hannah was on the couch with June in her lap, smiling. Marlene sat beside them in the armchair, leaning forward with her hands clasped, cooing at the baby. They looked like a magazine spread. 3 generations of women. A grandmother's love. The kind of image that was supposed to make you feel warm and sentimental. Adam felt nothing but rage. What is she doing here? His voice came out flat and hard. Hannah's smile disappeared. She clutched June a little tighter. Adam. He walked across the room and held out his arms. Give me my daughter. Adam, please, let's just talk about this. Now, Hannah. She hesitated, glancing at her mother. Marlene's face had gone stiff and defensive, her lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, Hannah stood and passed June over. Adam took his daughter, felt her small hands reach up to pat his face, and stepped back. I told you, Adam said, looking at Marlene now. You're not allowed near her. This is ridiculous, Marlene said, standing up. It's been 2 weeks. June's fine. You can't keep me from my granddaughter forever over an accident. It wasn't an accident. You burned her with bleach because you thought a birthmark was ugly. I made a mistake. For the first time, Marlene's voice wavered, something almost like genuine emotion creeping in. I've apologized. I've said I'm sorry 100 times. What more do you want from me? I want you to stay away from my child. She's my grandchild. She's my daughter, and you hurt her, and you don't get to just apologize your way back in. Adam's voice rose now, all the careful control he'd been maintaining for 2 weeks finally cracking. You stood in her nursery and poured bleach on her face while she was crying. You damaged her skin. She has a scar now, Marlene. A permanent scar. Because you couldn't accept that she wasn't perfect enough for you. Marlene's face flushed red. How dare you? Get out. Adam cut her off. Get out of my house right now, or I swear to God I'm calling the police. Hannah. Marlene turned to her daughter, her voice pleading. Are you going to let him do this? Hannah stood frozen between them, her arms wrapped around herself in that familiar gesture of distress. Adam watched his wife's face, saw the same conflict he'd seen in the hospital, the same desperate need to make everyone happy, to smooth everything over. Adam, Hannah said quietly, she's my mother, and June is my daughter, and your mother hurt her. It was a mistake. Stop saying that. Adam's shout made June flinch in his arms, and he immediately lowered his voice, gentling his hold. Stop defending her, Hannah. Stop making excuses. Your mother put bleach on our baby's face, and you keep acting like it's no big deal, like I'm the one being unreasonable for not wanting her around. You are being unreasonable, Marlene interjected. You're using June as a weapon against me because you've never liked me, never accepted me. You've been looking for an excuse to drive a wedge between me and my daughter, and now you think you've found one. Adam stared at her, genuinely stunned by the accusation. You think this is about you and me? Isn't it? No. This is about you hurting my kid and refusing to take responsibility for it. This is about you standing there right now, trying to make yourself the victim, when June is the one with the scar on her face. He moved toward the front door, still holding June. At the threshold, he turned back. You have 2 minutes to leave, Marlene. And if I ever find you in this house again without my permission, I'll file for a restraining order. Adam, Hannah started. Make a choice, Hannah. He looked at his wife, saw the tears starting to spill down her cheeks, and felt his heart break a little. Me and June, or your mother. Because I can't, I won't live like this. I won't spend every day wondering if you're sneaking her over here, letting her near June behind my back. She's my mother, Hannah whispered. And I'm your husband. June is your daughter. We're supposed to be your family now. He walked out of the house with June in his arms, not waiting to see if Marlene would follow his directive. He strapped June into her car seat in the truck and drove away, watching his house shrink in the rearview mirror. He didn't know where he was going. He just drove, taking familiar streets through Hollow Creek, past the elementary school where Hannah taught, past the diner where they'd had their first date, past the construction site where he'd been working on a new office building for the last 6 months. The town looked the same as it always had, quiet, sleepy, the kind of place where nothing much ever happened. But everything felt different now. Everything felt ruined. Adam's phone started ringing. Hannah's name lit up the screen. He rejected the call. It rang again and again. On the fourth call, he pulled over and answered. "She's gone," Hannah said, her voice thick with tears. "She left. She was crying, Adam. She could barely drive." "Good. How can you be so cold? She's my mother. She loves me. She loves June. Then she shouldn't have hurt her." Silence on the line. Adam could hear Hannah breathing, could picture her standing in their living room, phone pressed to her ear, trying to figure out what to say to make this better. "Where are you?" Hannah asked finally. "I don't know yet. Adam, please. Come home. Let's talk about this." He looked at June in the mirror. She'd fallen asleep, her small head lolling to the side, a tiny fist pressed against her cheek. The bandage was gone now. Dr. Patterson had said they could remove it after the first week, and the scar was visible in the afternoon light. A pale, irregular shape, a mark that would follow her for the rest of her life. "I'll come home," Adam said slowly, "when you're ready to be on my side. On June's side. Until then, I think we need some space." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm taking June to my brother's place. We'll stay there for a while." "You can't just take her." "Yes, I can. I'm her father, and I'm protecting her from someone who hurt her and isn't sorry about it." Adam started the engine. "If you want your mother in your life more than you want us, Hannah, then that's your choice. But I won't let June pay the price for it." He ended the call before she could respond. Adam's brother Jake lived in a 2-bedroom apartment downtown, above a bakery that made the whole building smell like fresh bread every morning. Jake was younger by 3 years, worked as a mechanic, and had always been the easygoing one in the family. When Adam showed up at his door at 4:30 in the afternoon with June in her car seat and a single bag of essentials, Jake took one look at his face and stepped aside without asking questions. "Stay as long as you need," Jake said, clearing newspapers and takeout containers off the couch. "I'll take the couch. You and June can have a bedroom." That first night, Adam lay awake in Jake's spare bedroom, listening to June breathe in the bassinet beside the bed. The room was small, the walls thin enough that he could hear the television from the living room, Jake laughing at something on late-night TV. The whole apartment had a temporary, transitional feel to it, the kind of place you lived in while you waited for something better to come along. Adam had never imagined he'd be here, separated from his wife, sleeping in his brother's spare room like a college kid. His phone buzzed with texts from Hannah, 27 of them over the course of the evening, then silence after midnight. He read them all, watched the progression from confusion to anger to pleading to resignation. "Please come home. We can work this out. You're being unfair." She said she's sorry. "I can't believe you're doing this." June needs both her parents. What am I supposed to tell people? That last one stayed with Adam longer than the others. What am I supposed to tell people? Not what am I supposed to tell June when she's older. Not how do I fix this, but what will people think? He put his phone face down on the nightstand and closed his eyes. The days developed a strange rhythm. Adam dropped June off at a daycare near Jake's apartment in the mornings, a small, clean place run by an older woman named Mrs. Chun who'd raised 4 kids of her own and had the kind of calm, capable presence that put him at ease. Then he went to work, came back in the late afternoon to pick June up, spent his evenings feeding her, bathing her, walking her around the apartment when she fussed. Jake usually worked late, which meant Adam had the place mostly to himself. The quiet suited him. He didn't want to talk, didn't want to explain what had happened or listen to advice about how to fix his marriage. He just wanted to keep June safe. Hannah called twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. The conversations were short, strained, focused entirely on June. How was she eating? Was she sleeping okay? Had Adam taken her for a checkup? At first, Hannah asked when he was coming home. After a week, she stopped asking. On Thursday of the second week, Adam got a text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is attorney Margaret Foster. I represent Hannah Turner. She would like to discuss custody arrangements for your minor child. Please contact my office to schedule a meeting." Adam stared at the message for a long time, sitting in his truck outside the daycare. Through the window, he could see Mrs. Chun holding June, bouncing her gently while she made exaggerated faces. June was laughing, her small hands reaching up to pat the woman's cheeks. His phone rang. "Hannah, did you get the text?" she asked when he answered. No greeting, no preamble. Yeah. Adam, I don't want to do this. But you won't come home. You won't even discuss coming back, and my mom, her voice broke. My mom is talking to lawyers too. She says you're unstable, that you yelled at her, threatened her, took June, and disappeared. I didn't disappear. You know exactly where I am. But you won't come back. You won't even try to work this out. Hannah was crying now, her words coming in gasps. We're married, Adam. We have a daughter together. We're supposed to figure this out, not just give up. I'm not the one who gave up, Adam said quietly. You chose your mother over us. That's not fair. You let her come into our house after she hurt June. You defended her. You're still defending her. He watched Mrs. Chun carry June toward the window, pointing at something outside. And now you're threatening me with lawyers because I won't pretend everything's okay. I'm not threatening you. My mom thinks. I don't care what your mom thinks. Adam's voice hardened. But if she wants to go to court, we'll go to court. And I'll bring the hospital records. The photos I took of June's face that night. The discharge papers that list chemical burn as the diagnosis. Let's see how a judge feels about Marlene being around our daughter after that. Silence on the other end. He could hear Hannah breathing, could almost see her standing wherever she was. Phone pressed to her ear, realizing what he was saying. You'd do that, Hannah whispered. You'd really take her to court? Drag all of this out in public? To protect June? Yes, absolutely. She's not a danger to June. She put bleach on her face, Hannah. Adam's shout echoed through the truck's cab. He took a breath, forcing his voice lower. I don't understand how you can keep saying that. How you can keep pretending this was just some unfortunate accident that we should all move past. Because she's my mother, Hannah said, and there was something desperate in her voice now, something pleading. Because I know her. I grew up with her. She's not perfect, she makes mistakes, but she loves me. She loves June, and I can't just cut her out of my life because she did one stupid thing. Then we're done here. Adam, tell your lawyer to send me whatever paperwork needs signing. Tell your mother I'll see her in court. He paused. And Hannah, when you're ready to actually protect our daughter instead of your mother's feelings, you know where to find me. He ended the call and sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching June through the daycare window. She'd settled in Mrs. Chin's arms, content and peaceful, completely unaware of the war being waged over her. The next 2 weeks were a blur of phone calls, paperwork, and consultations with a lawyer Adam couldn't really afford. Mark Reynolds was a family law attorney who worked out of a small office above insurance agency, the kind of guy who'd grown up in Hollow Creek and knew everyone's business. He listened to Adam's story without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. This should be straightforward, Mark said when Adam finished. You have documentation of the injury, medical records confirming it was a chemical burn, and witnesses to the mother-in-law's admission of what she did. Any judge is going to look at that and see a clear danger to the child. But, Adam prompted, hearing the hesitation in Mark's voice. But family court can be unpredictable, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone. Your mother-in-law, Marlene, right? She's lived here her whole life, born and raised. And you? I grew up 2 towns over. Moved here after I married Hannah. Mark nodded slowly. Here's what might happen. Marlene's lawyer is going to paint you as an outsider, someone who doesn't understand how families work here, who's overreacting and trying to separate a mother from her daughter and granddaughter. They'll say the bleach thing was an honest mistake, that she feels terrible about it, that she'd never do anything like it again. They'll focus on you taking June and leaving, make it sound like you kidnapped your own daughter. I didn't kidnap her. I'm her father. I know that. But perception matters in court, especially if the judge is someone who's been friends with the family for years. Mark leaned back in his chair. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just being realistic. This could get ugly. It got ugly. 3 days before the custody hearing, Adam came back to Jake's apartment to find a sheriff's deputy waiting by his truck. The man was older, heavy-set, with the kind of face that suggested he'd been doing this job too long and seen too much. Adam Turner, the deputy asked. That's me. I have a temporary custody order here. He handed Adam a manila envelope. Your wife has been granted temporary physical custody of the minor child, June Elizabeth Turner, pending the full hearing. You're required to return the child to the marital home within 24 hours. Adam stared at the papers, the words blurring on the page. Temporary custody order. Emergency motion filed by Hannah Turner and represented by attorney Margaret Foster. Child removed from primary residence without custodial parent's consent. This is bullshit, Adam said quietly. That may be, sir, but it's a court order. You need to comply. Adam looked up at the deputy's tired face. My mother-in-law burned my daughter with bleach. I have hospital records. I have photos. And some judge just decided to give custody back to the person who lets an abuser near our kid. I don't know the details, sir. I just serve the papers. But if you don't comply, you'll be in contempt of court, and that won't help your case any. The deputy's voice softened slightly. Get yourself a good lawyer. Fight it the right way. But don't make this worse by refusing to follow the order. After he left, Adam sat in his truck for a long time, holding the papers, watching the sun set over downtown Hollow Creek. June was inside with Jake, probably eating her dinner, completely oblivious to the fact that her father was about to lose her. He called Mark. I got served, Adam said. I know. I got a copy of the motion an hour ago. Mark sounded frustrated. Judge Kellerman signed off on it. He goes to church with Marlene's family. I told you this could happen. So what do? You comply with the order. Take June back tomorrow. And then we go to the full hearing and we fight like hell to get full custody back. And if we lose, we won't lose. Not with the evidence we have. But Adam, you need to be prepared for the possibility that even if you win full custody, the judge might grant Hannah supervised visitation. She's still June's mother. Unless you can prove she's directly unfit or dangerous, the court's going to want her to have some role in June's life. Hannah's not the problem, Adam said. Marlene is. I know, but Marlene isn't June's parent. Hannah is. And legally, that makes a big difference. Taking June back to the house was one of the hardest things Adam had ever done. He packed her things slowly, checking and rechecking that he had everything. Her clothes, her toys, the special blanket she liked to hold when she slept, the prescription cream for her scar, even though it was almost healed now. Jake drove them, his own beat-up sedan trailing Adam's truck. You wanted to come in? Jake asked when they pulled up to the house. No, but thanks. Hannah was waiting on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself despite the warm evening. She'd lost weight in the last few weeks, Adam noticed. Her jeans hung loose on her hips, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Hey, she said quietly as Adam carried June up the walk. Hey. He passed June over, watched his daughter look around in confusion, reaching back for him. The sound she made, a questioning little whine, nearly broke him. I'm going to get her back, Hannah, Adam said. At the hearing, I'm going to show the judge what your mother did, and I'm going to get full custody. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. Adam, please. Can't we try therapy or counseling or something? Figure this out together. We could have figured it out if you'd chosen differently. He stepped back, putting distance between them. If you told your mother she wasn't welcome here until she really acknowledged what she did. If you'd protected June instead of protecting Marlene's feelings. But you didn't. So now we're here. I did protect June. I told my mom she couldn't babysit anymore, that she could only visit when we were both home. That's not protection, Hannah. That's appeasement. You're trying to keep everyone happy, and it doesn't work that way. Not with this. He turned and walked back to his truck before she could respond. Before he could see the way June's face crumpled when she realized he was leaving. Before his resolve could crack. Jake was silent on the drive back to the apartment. When they got inside, he opened 2 beers and handed one to Adam without a word. They sat on the couch, drinking in silence, watching the news without really seeing it. You're doing the right thing, Jake said eventually. Doesn't feel like it. I know, but you are. Adam took a long drink, let the cold bitterness of it wash over his tongue. What if I lose? Then you keep fighting. You appeal. You document everything. You don't give up. Jake looked at his brother. But you're not going to lose. No judge in their right mind is going to look at those hospital records and think Marlene should be anywhere near that kid. Adam wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe that the truth would matter, that evidence would speak for itself, that the system would work the way it was supposed to. But he'd spent enough time in Hollow Creek to know that truth was less important than appearances, and evidence meant less than relationships. Still, it was all he had to hold on to. The custody hearing was held in the Dodge County Courthouse on a Tuesday morning in late August. The building was old, built in the early 1900s, all dark wood and high ceilings, and the kind of institutional smell that made Adam think of schools and libraries. He sat at a table with Mark Reynolds, watching people file into the courtroom. Hannah came in with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s with perfect hair and an expensive suit. Marlene followed close behind, sitting in the front row of the gallery, her face composed and serious. Judge Thomas Kellerman entered through a side door, and everyone stood. He was in his 60s, gray-haired, with the kind of weathered face that suggested a lifetime of hunting and fishing and outdoor work. Mark had told Adam that Kellerman had been on the bench for 20 years, that he was fair but traditional, that he valued family unity above almost everything else. That didn't bode well. The hearing began with Hannah's lawyer, Margaret Foster, presenting their case. She painted a picture of a stable home, a loving mother who'd made a temporary mistake by allowing her own mother, grieving and under stress, to visit against her husband's wishes. She talked about Adam's extreme reaction, his removal of the child from the marital home, his refusal to co-parent. She made it sound like Adam was the problem, like his protection of June was actually controlling behavior disguised as concern. Then it was Mark's turn. He stood slowly, gathered his papers, and approached the bench. Your Honor, this case is actually quite simple. On the night of June 14th, the defendant's mother, Marlene Pritchard, used household bleach to chemically burn a 6-week-old infant's face. I have medical records here from Hollow Creek General Hospital documenting a first-degree chemical burn with second-degree involvement. I have photographs taken at the time of the injury showing the extent of the damage. And I have a statement from Dr. Patterson, the treating physician, describing the injury and its cause. He laid the documents on the judge's desk one by one. Adam watched Kellerman's face as he reviewed them, saw the way his expression tightened. Mrs. Pritchard claimed she was attempting to lighten a birthmark using diluted bleach. Mark continued. When confronted by Mr. Turner, she defended her actions and showed no remorse. In the weeks following the incident, Mrs. Turner allowed her mother continued access to the child, despite Mr. Turner's explicit objection based on the child's safety. When Mr. Turner removed June from the home to protect her from further harm, Mrs. Turner filed for emergency custody, claiming he had kidnapped the child. Judge Kellerman looked up. Is Mrs. Pritchard present in the courtroom? I am, Your Honor. Marlene stood, her voice strong and clear. Did you apply bleach to this child's face? Marlene glanced at her daughter, then back at the judge. I did, Your Honor, but it was an honest mistake. I thought I was helping. The birthmark was getting darker, and I knew it bothered Hannah, even though she wouldn't say so. I used very diluted bleach, and I was extremely careful. I had no idea it would cause any harm. You had no idea that bleach would harm a baby's skin? Judge Kellerman's tone was carefully neutral. I thought if I diluted it enough, it would be safe. I read online about people using it for skin lightening treatments. Mrs. Pritchard, you realize that information found online is not the same as medical advice from a licensed physician? Yes, Your Honor. I know that now. I feel terrible about what happened. If I could take it back, I would. I just wanted to help my granddaughter. Mark stepped forward again. Your Honor, if I may, the issue here isn't whether Mrs. Pritchard feels remorse now, after being hauled into court. The issue is that she deliberately applied a caustic chemical to an infant's face, caused permanent scarring, and then, when confronted, defended her actions. She told Mr. Turner that he should be grateful. She accused him of overreacting when he took the child to the emergency room. And in the weeks that followed, she continued to attempt contact with the child, even showing up at the marital home uninvited. Is that accurate, Mrs. Pritchard? Marlene's composure slipped slightly. I may have said some things in the heat of the moment that I didn't mean. I was upset. Adam was yelling at me, accusing me of hurting June on purpose. I got defensive. Did you tell him he was overreacting? A pause. Yes. Did you attempt to visit the child after being told you weren't welcome? Another pause, longer this time. Yes, but only because I love my granddaughter. I wanted to make sure she was okay. Judge Kellerman leaned back in his chair, studying the documents in front of him. The courtroom was silent except for the tick of the clock on the wall and the soft sound of someone crying in the back row. Hannah, Adam realized. Mrs. Foster, the judge said, does your client intend to allow Mrs. Pritchard continued access to the minor child? Margaret Foster stood. Mrs. Turner loves her mother and believes strongly in the importance of extended family relationships. However, she has agreed to supervise visitation only and would not allow Mrs. Pritchard to be alone with June. That wasn't my question. I asked if she intends to allow any access. A long pause. Hannah leaned forward to whisper something to her lawyer. Yes, Your Honor, Foster said finally. Mrs. Turner believes that her mother made a mistake but is not a danger to the child, and that June should have a relationship with her grandmother. Judge Kellerman nodded slowly, then turned to Adam. Mr. Turner, I'd like to hear from you directly. What is your position regarding Mrs. Pritchard's relationship with your daughter? Adam stood, his legs feeling unsteady. Your Honor, my mother-in-law put bleach on my daughter's face. Whether she meant to cause harm or not, she did cause harm. June has a permanent scar, and when I confronted Mrs. Pritchard about it, she wasn't sorry. She thought she'd done me a favor. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I don't believe people should get second chances with children, not when it comes to something like this. Maybe Mrs. Pritchard feels bad now. Maybe she's learned her lesson, but my daughter can't take that risk. So yes, my position is that Mrs. Pritchard should have no contact with June. None. Ever. That's a pretty extreme position, Mr. Turner. With respect, Your Honor, putting bleach on a baby's face was pretty extreme too. A ripple of murmurs went through the courtroom. Judge Kellerman raised a hand for silence. Here's my ruling, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the room. I'm granting primary physical custody of June Elizabeth Turner to her father, Adam Turner. Mrs. Turner will have supervised visitation rights, 2 afternoons per week and alternating weekends, with supervision provided by a court-appointed monitor. Mrs. Pritchard is prohibited from any contact with a minor child until June turns 18 years of age, at which point June may choose whether to have a relationship with her grandmother. Hannah let out a choke sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Marlene sat frozen in her seat, her face gone white. Furthermore, Judge Kellerman continued, I'm ordering Mrs. Turner to complete a parenting course focused on child safety and appropriate boundaries with extended family. Mrs. Pritchard, while I appreciate that you may have believed you were helping, your actions were reckless and caused harm to a vulnerable infant. The fact that you initially defended those actions rather than taking responsibility concerns me greatly. This court takes child safety very seriously, and chemical burns are not something we treat lightly. He gathered the papers in front of him. Both parties will receive written copies of this order within the week. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun was bright and hot, the kind of August heat that made the air shimmer over the parking lot. Adam stood by his truck, feeling simultaneously lighter and heavier than he had in weeks. He'd won. June was safe. But the look on Hannah's face as she'd left the courtroom, devastated, shattered, kept playing in his mind. Mark clapped him on the shoulder. Good outcome. Better than I expected, honestly. Yeah. You okay? I don't know. Adam looked back at the courthouse steps, where Hannah was standing with her mother and her lawyer, all 3 of them talking in low, urgent voices. I just destroyed my marriage. Permanently. You protected your daughter. That's what you set out to do. I know. It doesn't feel good. Mark nodded. It's not supposed to. But you made the right call, Adam. In 5 years, in 10 years, you'll look back on this and know you did what needed to be done. After Mark left, Adam sat in his truck with the windows down, letting the hot air wash over him. He needed to go pick up June from daycare. Needed to start figuring out what his life looked like now. Single father, working construction, raising a daughter on his own. He needed to call Jake and tell him he could have his apartment back. Needed to start looking for a place of his own, somewhere with a yard where June could play when she got older. He needed to do a lot of things. But for right now, he just sat there, letting himself feel the weight of everything he'd lost and everything he'd kept. His phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. "I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted." Adam stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "I never wanted this, but I won't apologize for protecting our daughter." He sent it, then turned off his phone and drove away. The divorce papers came 3 days later, delivered by courier to Jake's apartment. Adam signed them at the kitchen table while his brother made coffee, the pen scratching across the pages in the quiet morning. Division of assets, custody arrangement, child support, all the practical details of dismantling a life. "You sure about this?" Jake asked, setting a mug in front of him. She filed. "Not much I can do about it. You could fight it. Try for reconciliation." Adam shook his head. "There's nothing to reconcile. She chose her mother. I chose June. Some things can't be fixed." He signed the last page and slid the papers back into their envelope. 6 years of marriage reduced to legal documents and court orders. Finding a place to live was harder than Adam expected. Hollow Creek wasn't a big town, and rental options for a single father with an infant were limited. He looked at apartments that were too small, houses that cost too much, a duplex that smelled like mildew and had bars on the windows. Finally, in mid-September, he found a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town, near the lake. It was old, needed work, but the rent was reasonable and the landlord didn't mind that Adam had a baby. "Long as you keep the place clean and pay on time, we're good," the man said, handing over the keys. Adam moved in on a Saturday, with help from Jake and a couple of guys from the construction crew. They hauled boxes and furniture up the narrow stairs, assembled June's crib in the smaller bedroom, hung curtains in the living room. By evening, the house looked like something that could be a home, sparse, definitely, but livable. That night, after everyone had left and June was asleep in her new room, Adam stood on the small back porch and looked out over the water. The lake was calm, reflecting the last orange light of sunset. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass near the shore. It was quiet out here, away from town, away from people who knew his story and had opinions about what he should have done. It was exactly what he needed. The supervised visits with Hannah started 2 weeks later. They met at a community center downtown, a neutral location with a play area and a social worker named Ms. Rodriguez who sat nearby with a clipboard, making notes. The first visit was awkward and painful. Hannah cried the whole time, holding June and apologizing over and over in a whisper Adam could barely hear. June squirmed and fussed, confused by the strange environment and her mother's distress. "This is so wrong," Hannah said when she finally passed June back at the end of the hour. "You took everything from me." "No," Adam said quietly. "Your mother did that." The visits got easier, or at least less obviously painful. Hannah learned to control her tears, learned to make the most of her limited time. She brought toys and books, sang the songs June liked, took pictures to look at during the weeks when she didn't see her daughter. She completed the parenting course the judge had ordered, earned a certificate that allowed her unsupervised visits every other weekend. They didn't talk about Marlene. They didn't talk about the divorce, which was finalized in October. They talked only about June, her developmental milestones, her sleep schedule, her first attempts at solid food. They were polite and careful with each other, like strangers negotiating a business transaction. Sometimes Adam wondered if Hannah still saw her mother, if Marlene asked about June, if they sat together and talked about what a terrible person Adam was for keeping them apart. But he never asked, and Hannah never volunteered the information. It didn't matter anyway. June was safe. That was all that counted. Winter came early to Wisconsin that year. By November, snow was falling in thick, wet flakes that stuck to everything. Adam bought a snowsuit for June, tiny and puffy, and laughed at how she looked like a little astronaut when he bundled her up for trips to daycare. She was growing fast now, 7 months old, starting to sit up on her own and babble in that half-language babies speak before real words come. The scar on her cheek had faded more than Dr. Patterson had expected. In most lights, you could barely see it, just a slight texture difference in the skin, a pale patch that might have been nothing. But Adam saw it every time he looked at his daughter. Saw it and remembered the night he'd found Marlene standing over the crib with bleach and a smile. He didn't regret what he'd done. Not for a second. The first Christmas after the divorce, Adam kept June with him. Hannah was supposed to have her Christmas morning, according to the custody agreement, but she'd gone to visit her sister in California and decided to trade that visit for New Year's instead. Adam was fine with that. He wanted June's first real Christmas to be in their house, with their tree, with new traditions that had nothing to do with the past. He bought too many presents, wrapped them badly, stayed up until midnight on Christmas Eve assembling a play kitchen that turned out to be much more complicated than the box suggested. On Christmas morning, he held June in his lap, while she tore wrapping paper with more enthusiasm and skill and took pictures that he knew he'd look at for years to come. Jake came over in the afternoon, bringing Chinese takeout and stories about their mother's latest attempts to set him up with women from her church group. They ate on the living room floor, June crawling between them, grabbing at boxes and ribbons. It wasn't the Christmas Adam had imagined when he'd married Hannah, but it was good. It was real. "You doing okay?" Jake asked as they cleaned up, stuffing wrapping paper into trash bags. "Yeah," Adam said, and meant it. "We're doing okay." Spring arrived slowly, the ice on the lake breaking up in jagged chunks, the snow melting into mud that made everything messy for weeks. Adam planted a small garden in the backyard, tomatoes, peppers, herbs he'd seen in a magazine and thought he might try growing. June watched from her playpen on the porch, shouting encouragement in her Babel language, clapping her hands when Adam turned around to look at her. She said her first word in April. Duh. Adam was changing her diaper when it happened, not paying much attention, just going through the routine motions. Then June looked right at him and said it again, clear as anything, duh. He froze, diaper half-fastened, staring at his daughter. She grinned at him, all gums and joy, and repeated it. Duh. Something in Adam's chest cracked open, relief and pride and a fierce, protective love that made it hard to breathe. "That's right, sweetheart," he whispered, picking her up and holding her close. "I'm your duh." By summer, a routine had settled into place that felt stable and sustainable. Adam worked construction during the day, picked June up from daycare in the late afternoon, spent his evenings cooking simple meals and playing with blocks and reading the same picture books over and over until he had them memorized. On weekends, he took June to the park near the lake, pushing her in the baby swing while she shrieked with laughter, or walked along the shore with her on his shoulders, pointing out birds and boats and the way the sun sparkled on the water. Hannah's visits became more regular, more relaxed. She'd moved into a small apartment closer to the school where she taught, had started dating someone new, a guidance counselor named David who seemed nice enough from the brief interactions Adam had with him. She never mentioned Marlene, and Adam never asked. Once in late July, Hannah brought it up herself. They were at the community center, waiting for Ms. Rodriguez to finish her notes so they could leave. June was playing with blocks on the floor between them. "I haven't spoken to my mother in 3 months, Hannah said suddenly. Adam looked at her, surprised. "What?" She kept trying to convince me that you were wrong, that you'd overreacted, that we should fight for grandparents' rights, appeal the custody ruling, find a way around the judge's order. Hannah's voice was flat, tired. I finally told her I couldn't do it anymore. That what she did was wrong, and I was tired of pretending it wasn't. What did she say? She said I was choosing you over her, that I was a terrible daughter. Hannah smiled, but it was sad, broken around the edges. So, I guess we're both terrible children now. Adam didn't know what to say to that. He watched June stack one block on top of another, her small face scrunched in concentration. "I'm sorry," Hannah said quietly. "For all of it. For not protecting June the way I should have. For making you fight this alone. You were right, and I was wrong, and by the time I figured that out, it was too late. You could still," Adam started then stopped. "Could still what? Come back? Fix things?" They were divorced. The papers were signed. The life they'd built together dismantled piece by piece. "You could still see June more, if you want. We could rework the custody arrangement." Hannah shook her head. "No, the current setup works. And honestly, I think June's better off with you. You're the one who knew what she needed. You're the one who protected her when I couldn't." She stood up, gathering her purse and June's diaper bag. "I just wanted you to know that I get it now. What you were trying to tell me. I just wish I'd listened sooner." After she left, Adam sat there for a long time, holding June, trying to figure out if he felt vindicated or just sad. 1 year after the custody hearing, Adam sat on his back porch in the late August heat, June in his lap. She was 14 months old now, walking with that toddler wobble that made every step look like a near disaster, saying real words and making her preferences known with the fierce determination of someone who'd inherited her father's stubbornness. The scar on her cheek was barely visible anymore. In most photos, you couldn't see it at all. But in certain lights, like now, with the sunset casting everything in warm orange and gold, it caught the glow, a faint, pale line that curved along her cheekbone. Adam traced it gently with his thumb, felt June lean into the touch. "You'll have questions about this someday," he said quietly. "About why we don't see Grandma Marlene. About why your mom and I aren't together. And when you do, I'll tell you the truth. Not all of it. Not the stuff you don't need to carry. But enough that you understand." June looked up at him with those serious eyes that were so much like his own, then reached up to pat his face with one small, sticky hand. "For now, though," Adam continued, "you just need to know that you're safe, that you're loved, that I will always, always choose you first, no matter what it costs." Jake stepped out onto the porch, 2 beers in hand. "You getting philosophical out here?" "Something like that." "She have any idea what you're saying?" "Not a clue." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower over the lake. Fireflies were starting to blink in the grass near the shore, and somewhere in the distance, Adam could hear the sound of kids playing, their laughter carrying across the water. "You ever think about what you lost?" Jake asked eventually. Adam considered the question. He thought about the house he'd lived in with Hannah, the plans they'd made for their future, the life he'd imagined when he'd said, "I do" 6 years ago. He thought about Sunday dinners and family photos and the simple, ordinary happiness he'd taken for granted until it was gone. Then he looked down at June, her small body warm and solid in his arms, completely trusting, completely safe. "Every day," Adam said honestly. "But it was worth it. Everything I lost was worth it if it means she's safe. No regrets. None." Jake nodded, took a long drink of his beer. "Good. Because she's going to remember this, you know. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere in there he tapped his chest. She'll remember that her dad fought for her, protected her, never gave up. I hope so. She will." They sat until the sun disappeared completely, until the fireflies were the only light in the darkness, until June's breathing had gone slow and even with sleep. Then Adam carried his daughter inside, laid her gently in her crib, and stood watching her for a long moment in the soft glow of her nightlight. The scar on her cheek was invisible in this light, but Adam knew it was there, would always know, would carry that knowledge with him for the rest of his life. A reminder of the night everything changed, the line he'd drawn and refused to cross. He reached down and tucked her blanket more securely around her small body. "You'll never have to doubt what love looks like," he whispered. "I promise you that." Outside, the town was quiet, the kind of quiet that only comes when a man has finally drawn his line and never crossed it again.